Alabama Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore was an embarrassment for the GOP since he won the primary, somewhat surprisingly. And all of that was before it was revealed that he apparently had a number of relationships with underage girls back in the late 70s and early 80s. And that has caused a number of prominent Republicans to denounce Moore, or sort of denounce him while leaving a lot of wiggle room, or quickly walk away from the person asking the question. So that you add all that up and it's a bad situation for the GOP. But we wanna give you the details of what was revealed by the Washington Post today. So it turns out that back when he was a judge, there was a 14-year-old girl, Leigh Corfman, that was sitting outside of her mother, outside of a courthouse, because a custody hearing was going on, which is great context for this. He approaches the mom and the daughter and says that the mom can go inside to deal with the legal stuff and he will stay outside with the child, which is very nice of him. Unfortunately, he had an ulterior motive. Alone with Leigh, Moore chatted her up and asked for her phone number. Days later, he picked her up around the corner from her house, drove her around 30. I noticed that she was around the corner from her house, not at her house. That's interesting that's how he set that up. Drove her about 30 minutes to his home in the woods, told her how pretty she was and kissed her. On a second visit, she says, he took off her shirt and pants and removed his clothes. He touched her over her bra and underpants, she says, and guided her hand to touch him over his underwear. She was quoted by the Washington Post as saying, I wanted it over with, I wanted out. Please just get this over with. Whatever this is, just get it over. And so she asked to be taken home and he took her home at that point. Now, two of her childhood friends say that she told them back at the time that she was seeing an older man. One says that at the time she identified him as Moore. So this is not just looking back 30 plus years. She had been talking to people about this, including to her mother, inside of 10 years of it happening. Now, there are three other women interviewed by the Post that say that Moore pursued them when they were between the ages of 16 and 18. Wendy Miller says she was 14 and working as a Santa's helper at a mall. That's just terrible. When Moore first approached her, thankfully he waited 2 years before he started asking her out on dates. And there was another 17-year-old that he spoke to in her high school. So he knew exactly how old she was because she was still in high school at that point. Understand that he was in his 30s when all of these situations were going on. Now, with those two women, apparently it didn't go beyond kissing. But there was an 18-year-old cheerleader that says that Moore took her out on dates that included bottles of wine when she was not of legal age to drink the wine. And so this adds up to a problem for him because there apparently is a pattern of behavior where he was targeting women as young as 14 for dates.
Yeah, cruising malls and high schools.
Malls and high schools looking for people working with Santas. That's a pretty dark situation. Now he did respond, his campaign responds saying these allegations are completely false and are a desperate political attack by the National Democrat Party and the Washington Post on this campaign. Now, I don't know about all of the women, but Corfman, the 14-year-old in the story, says that she has voted for the Republican in the last 3 presidential elections. She voted for Donald Trump. And apparently none of the women have been involved in any way in terms of donations or anything with this race. So the idea that they are just hacks trying to help the campaign is not just offensive in the normal way that these sorts of allegations are, but it's also unfounded in any way. She's a Donald Trump supporter that he apparently tried to seduce while she was 14 years old.
It's weird how sexual, we talk a lot lately about harassers, abusers, in this case, potential pedophiles, they don't really fall within one party or another. And their victims don't always fall within one party or another. I'm sure when he was cruising the malls and the high schools back in the 70s, he wasn't going, is this person gonna be a future Republican before I harass and maybe try to seduce her and I mean, there was the 18-year-old that they gave wine to. I'm not sure if that went to every one of his targets. But so it's a shame that you even have to say, hey, so just to point out, you guys, this victim of this pedophile, this potential pedophile, voted for Trump, didn't care about all the things that was coming out about him during the election, has voted for Republicans in the past, so that the attack on her won't be, oh, look at this, just a lying dim. That's all they're ever doing, trying to get us and take us down. It happens from people of any political stripe and of people to people that alienated.
Yeah, and that obviously that was to refute general argument, which was that it's politically motivated, and of course he kept just throwing that up. It's politically motivated, and that's going to be the size that fits all on this issue. It's interesting also to see some in the GOP pulling away from him, but some defending him. And I was seeing something from the state auditor there, and quoting Bible and saying that even with Joseph and Mary was a teenager and Joseph was an adult. I'm thinking, wow. I mean, that's a tortured kind of defense for this. I mean,
we never know that. As stupid as an example I mean, I don't know a lot about the Bible, but they didn't even sleep together. That was the whole point of that story, you moron. Again, the atheist has to remind the Christian of how this thing plays out.
Yeah,
and it's disgusting. I love that Roy Moore is today spotlight in the news, perverted Alabama politician, and this state auditor is hold my beer. I think I can beat him.
No, exactly. No, it's look. There's no defense. This may stick. Particularly when you see so many of the GOP melting away from him right now.
Yeah. So we actually have a little bit of that here in this compilation that JR put together. You're going to see Richard Shelby and Jeff Flake responding to questions about these new allegations.
If there is any shred of truth to these stories, he ought to step aside. And now.
Is he fit? Would he be fit to serve in the Senate if this was true?
No. If there's any shred of truth, he ought to step aside. I mean, just with regard to Roy Moore, those stories are appalling, just appalling.
It's a devastating, nasty story. If the revelations, if that's true, I don't believe there'd be any place for him in the U.S. Senate. Okay?
So in addition to them, you also have Mitch McConnell calling him to step down if it's true. So again, leaving themselves some wiggle room there. But John McCain said the allegations against Roy Moore are deeply disturbing and disqualifying. He should immediately step down and allow the people of Alabama to elect a candidate they can be proud of. So John McCain, perhaps the least sort of hedging his bets out of all of them.
Yeah, this kind of lends to what I was thinking when I saw the immediate refusal or rebuttal of him, which doesn't happen a lot, which is why it was a little bit surprising. So Richard Shelby, after he said the first parts of there, a follow-up question said, "So, do you think he should carry on and maybe go on and serve if he wins?" And he said, "Well, you know who I supported in the primary. It wasn't this guy. I think Luther Strange."
Sure.
The point being, the guys that didn't want him because of his other political innings, they know how much of how many racist things he said. He backed the whole birtherism thing and his homophobia behavior. So all that they already know about, know how hard it's gonna be to have this guy around. He's crazy. Yeah. So they're like, okay, let's hurry up and say, let's get him out for this reason because we didn't want him for the other reasons we'd have to defend him for. That weren't particularly illegal, just deplorable.
Yeah, although, and again, it's good to see them actually coming out against him for the most part. And again, I'm gonna have one or two that are pretty bad of people defending him, but they are coming out against him. But in the wake of the Access Hollywood tape, some prominent Republicans denounced Trump and now enthusiastically work to advance his agenda every single day. So these sorts of denunciations only go so far.
It is weird, by the way, Johnny, that politics is that one space that sort of you don't know which way it's going to fall. I mean, show business, everybody's pulling movies and reshooting films, and guys are losing their jobs and are closing down studios and declaring bankruptcy at the first whiff of sexual harassment, and certainly these rape allegations as well. But here, as you mentioned, the Access Hollywood tape, we end up with the President of the United States. You're not sure how much will stick. I think JR makes a great point when he talks about the fact that it may be the extremism here in Roy Moore he hasn't made a lot of friends along the way that may hurt him also.
Yeah, maybe. And I noticed one of the first things that came out about this, I think they actually tried to beat the Washington Post to publishing this. Somebody tipped them off, but Breitbart put an article as a part of several articles about that this is a hit job basically, and they defended his relationships with most of the women, saying he's just being romantic and stuff like that. There's nothing immoral about habitually trying to date people who are 47% as old as you. Now they
I love that you did the percentage. That's quite impressive.
I'm probably wrong. And then they got to the section with the 14-year-old, and they didn't even comment on that. They just linked to the Post section on it and then moved on to other stuff. And so so
yeah, the 14-year-old is indefensible.
It's indefensible. And so this is the outlet that pushed the Pizzagate conspiracy, amongst others, was so concerned about pedophilia in Washington, now working, getting out as fast as they can to run interference for a guy who apparently was a serial pedophile back in the 70s.
So the reason
80s.
that they think this is all politically motivated is because this is a card that they play a lot of times.
Yeah.
Let's just go ahead and bash anyone by any way we can, something completely embarrassing or even something that most people actually accept or other people have done in normal relationship situations. But let's just put that stuff out there and maybe destroy them. So when it's something that's actually really bad, they say they're out to destroy me. Everybody's out to get me. No one has been treated, I think this was this particular one. No one has been treated as badly as Roy Moore has. No politician in history, except your boy, the president, said the same thing already.
Exactly, yeah. At some point, there's only one who's treated worse than everyone else.
If you like this clip of the Young Turks, you know there's a whole live 2-hour show, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern every day, and you can download it or stream it and watch it without ads if you become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.